Hey folks, welcome to part 2 of the bistro table build. I don't know why I call it a bistro table. It's not going to be that fancy. This looks very much like part 1. For you guys who are really sharp, you notice I'm wearing the same shirt. That's because it's about an hour after I glued up the top, and I'm starting on the next section, which is going to be our center pedestal, the thing that holds the tabletop and makes legs for the floor. Now, the easy way to do this would be to make a square, because I want to be able to run all thread through the feet and into the pedestal, just for an added safety precaution, because dowels and glue would be fine. But I know how the table is going to be used, and I have grandkids, and they're going to think it's a jungle gym and all of that, and so I want to actually get them legs on there solid. So I could do that with a square upright, but I don't know, that's boring, right? We have to overthink things as woodworkers. So I am going to make mine an octagon. An octagon because that gives me still 4 sides that I can then run the all thread through and bolt those in. Through an experiment that I did a little bit before I turned the camera on, I know that my width of my slats that are going to make up the octagon need to be 2.5 inches wide. That's going to give me about 6.5 to 7 inch diameter of an upright, which is still a little bit bigger than what I wanted it, but I have to think of stability or stability, depending on who you are. All of that, regardless. I'm not going to go through the whole milling process again like I did in part 1. I did get some oak cut up. Those are going to be my upright slats. This needs to be 40, I think 40 inches is my height. I'm not sure. I'm going to cut them long anyway, and then once I get it figured out for sure, then I'll cut it down to final size. So that's what I'm doing today. We're building an octagon center pedestal. What I'm going to do is cut this into 3-inch strips, knowing that it's probably going to bow and do all that, and that's why I'm cutting it at 3-inch as opposed to 2.5. I'm never going to go to my final width right off the get-go. So I'm going to go ahead and set this bad animal. We're going to set that at 3. Technically, I could get away with 2 3/4, but just, you know, I don't think I'm going to gain anything from that. You know, this is just about 7 inches. So I'm not going to gain anything by doing that. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut these into 3-inch strips, and then we'll go from there. My dust collector is way over there. Here's the thing. This is rough cut. Traditionally, this is going to bind up on my routing knife. I kind of know it already. And if it does, I have a solution. Not really a great solution, but I have a solution. But we'll see how it goes. Maybe I'll get lucky. I mentioned, maybe in part 1, I don't remember. I think it was in part 1 that I needed to change my blade. And really what I needed to do was clean my blade. Folks, you got to clean your blades once in a while. And I'm going to tell you what, I just went underneath the kitchen sink and just looked at the, Mr. Yuck chemicals. You guys remember Mr. Yuck, don't you? Come on. Anyway, found the Mr. Yuck chemicals and CLR. I don't have any idea what it's for. Calcium, lime, and rust, maybe, CLR. It works amazing. Holy moly. In fact, it works so good, I'm actually doing the Delta blade that came with this saw, and it's junk. And I used that blade. I know I used it for some really nasty pine. So we're going to see how it does on that. But anyway, long story short, this blade ought to be good. Let me check my height again, because I'm going to bring that down a smidge. Okay, that's the smidge. All right, let's see how it goes. Okay, this is where the idea comes into play. Now you may have seen me do this before. I'm not a super big fan of doing this, but I mean, sometimes you got to if you want to get through the board. So I just take a wedge. These are door shims. And I just wedge that in there to open that back up. And that just allows it to move, you know. Once I get so far, I'm not going to have to deal with it anymore. You know, it'll stay that way. I should be able to cut this board. And that's another reason I cut them wide, because I know I'm going to run into an issue. So now let me turn this back on. Just make sure that you got, you know, it's sliding nice, you got play, you're not right up against the blade. Don't do that. I just put one hand on it, that should be plenty. I'm going to jump back to the milling process for a second, because we didn't talk about this when I made the tabletop, because I wanted to use wider pieces. And so I could not, at least on my jointer, I couldn't joint them on mine because it's only a 6-inch joiner. But this is a little bit different process, okay? I'm using, again, rough cut lumber. And folks, if you're rolling in the dough and you're buying surfaced 4 sides, disregard this. This doesn't apply to you. But if you're using even pallet wood, a log off of a tree, I've seen guys do it, you can do it. But if you're using any kind of rough lumber, you're going to need a joiner to get one side, one face flat. Now there's a million videos, every woodworker that's got a channel will tell you that if you don't have it, it's no joiner, no problem. See how many titles are of that. I'm guaranteeing you there's dozens of them. No joiner, no problem is true if you are joining the edge, okay? It's true for that. But if you're using rough lumber and you need a face flat, I don't know any other way to do that but with a joiner, okay? I always use these paddles, even though I hate them, because the sponge doesn't grip the board, okay? I'm just gonna be honest with you here. So what I've done is I've altered mine a little bit, and I drilled 4 holes, and I just ran little screws in there, just enough to grab onto the board. And it's fine, because whenever you plane it, it's going to take that any hole out anyway. So, but that's what I got to do now. I got 7 or 8 of these. I forget, I did 1. I got to do 7 more of these, and then I can start. I'm probably not going to run them through the planer right away. I'm just going to let them breathe a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Let them rest. And then I'll start working them through the planer maybe tomorrow, okay? But I'm gonna go ahead and get this fired up and get that going. So we have a beautifully flattened board. Now, I can run this through the planer now, or I can edge joint it now. It doesn't really matter what order you go in, but when it comes to the edge joint anyway, because once you run this through the planer, you'll have parallel sides, which is what you want. You're not making a wobbly rectangle. I don't know what it's called. Anyway, so you can joint this now on the edge, or you can run it through the planer. Either one is what I'm trying to say. But I need to get busy because I got a few more of these to do, and I'm getting hungry. So these are all my slats that I face jointed, I guess what would be yesterday now, I don't remember. And I just let them sit up here just to cool off, think about life as they know it. Again, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on the milling process because I explained a lot of that on the top, the tabletop. One thing I just want to share with how I do this, because I have boards of various thicknesses, okay? I know what I don't want to go under as far as the thickness for the pedestal, and that one right there is going to be close. So when it comes time to milling these all up to the same size, I start with my narrowest board. Get that to where it is flat, get that measurement, and then that is my target measurement for all of the rest of these. If you start with the biggest one and get it down to size, you might find when you get to your thinnest board, you don't have enough to get it flat and still have that much meat left to meet that criteria. So I start with the thinnest one first, but now I got to move all this stuff. So I guess we just get to it. Golly Moses. So that's my two thinnest ones right there. These are the two I'm going to start running with first. Now, one more thing about that. You can kind of eyeball this, and I can tell that this edge is thinner than that edge. Don't set your height for the thin edge, because by the time it gets down here, you're going to be just hurting your planer like crazy. Don't do that. So what? Just you hush. So I'm going to start with my thicker side, set my planer to that height, and then start running it through. Like I said before, I start really high. I'll crank it down till it hits. That's fine. You know, if it takes me 3 passes before I'm actually taking meat off, that's fine. I'd rather be safe than sorry. So now we just up. So that is just catching the rollers. And that's what I want it to do. I'll bring it down a quarter turn. No, not a quarter turn. That's too much. 1/8 turn? I don't know. I'll bring it down a little bit. Not even going to take anything on the side. Okay, so when all is said and done, what I have is a board that is just over 3/4 of an inch thick. I was able to eliminate snipe, which means I can cut from this board anywhere I want to, which is good. And now I just got to bring the rest of them down to that. If you have two that are fairly similar in size, you can run them through multiples. You know, that's what I did. So there's that. So I'm going to go ahead and mill the rest of these up. It is 20 to, holy moly, it is 20 to 8 already. I'm going to try and get the rest of these milled up tonight. Tomorrow, we start cutting. Not unless I get these done tonight, though. All right, see you in the morning. Okay, a new day. I have about an hour or so that I can work on this. What I've gone ahead and done while you guys were just waiting for the next scene to come in, really, but I went ahead and edge jointed all of these boards. That's where I left it. They needed edge jointed. I went ahead and edge jointed them, ran them through the table saw, cleaned up the other side. I have them to not their final width. I went a 1/16 over because I know I'm going to need a margin of error. I'm just going to be honest with you, folks. Odds are I'm going to mess something up. Hopefully it's within a 1/16 of an inch, because Otherwise, I got to start from scratch, and I don't want to do that. I'm running out of time. So the next thing I need to do in building this octagon pedestal is I got to start cutting angles. And we're going to see how this goes. And I say that because as I was cleaning up the edges on some of these, they have a smidgen of a bow to them. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't feel like messing with starting over. So when I say a smidgen, I mean it's just real minor, but I can see it. Like I can see it when I put it on the saw top here. It's real minor. We're going to try and run them through anyway and see what happens. I'm going to run the whole board through, and I say that because these are longer than what I need by probably 6 inches, but that's okay. So the angle I'm looking for here to make an octagon is 22.5 degrees of miter. Now, if I try to set my saw at 22.5 degrees angle, it's scary. So I'm not going to do that. What I've done is I have, math that I took 90 degrees and I subtracted 22.5. That left me with 67.5 degree angle. So that's what I'm set on. That's going to be the angle that I need. I got sawdust all over me. Man, this is a new shirt too. Golly, I'm gonna have to change before I go. Anyway, my dust separator apparently got full when I wasn't looking, and it started to overflow back into the dust bag, and so I just got done emptying both of them. Probably where all that came from. So back to what I was saying, 67.5 degrees is the angle I'm going to need. I'm going to have to put that on both of them. They're going to have to parallelogram. Is that the term I want to use? I don't know. The top half of a stop sign is what they need to be. So I think what I'm going to do is just trying to keep it tight to the fence. I'm going to run the first one through. Actually, I think since I have it set, I'm going to run all of them through on the first angle, stop, set what my second angle needs to be as far as width, and then run them all back through again. Learning along the way, folks. I've never built an octagon table. So dust collection's not even hooked up. Brand new saw blade. That's good for it. Okay, I have one side of these all ripped to my 22.5 degrees. Pay no attention to that. I have a question for you guys that have the Delta 7 something numbers T2, the latest version of this saw. How do your fences sit flat to the top of the table? Because down here at this end, it's nice and flat to the table. But up here, I've got an 1/8 inch to 3/16. And so the reason I care about that is I'm not running my angle this way, but if I'm running my angle this way, it wants to go under the fence. And so that creates an issue that I don't want to have created. So if you have this saw, tell me, does your fence sit flat down there? There's a plastic, probably silicone block under here. And I'm thinking, maybe I do something stupid like take it off and sand a little bit off of it and put it back down. It should lay flat. Anyway, enough of that. So I have one side through, and to alleviate the problem of my angle going under the fence, I have moved the fence to the other side. And I'd like to tell you that you could just set this to 2.5 and you'll get 2.5 width, but you won't. Okay. It won't even actually hit the blade that way. What you got to do is play around with it. Get it in here, run a test hit. That's maybe, just until you're hitting the top, and see where it's hitting. See if you're getting full width or not. Mine is actually at about 2 3/16. Okay, and that will give me a 2 1/4 at the top of my angle, which is what I'm looking for. So now I run all these through that way. Don't you dare fall. I told you never to do that. Anyway, I run all these through. I'll have my 2 angles that I need, and then we're cutting them down to final length, and then we're gluing this animal up. All of that sounds like it ought to happen in the blink of an eye. It won't. Guarantee you there's going to be some problem I'm going to run into, and you're going to know about it. But in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and run these through, and then we'll get to the next step. Okay, so next on the list, now that I have both of my angles cut, now it's time to get them down to size. Final length. When I'm building something that has to be a specific height, I start at the top and I work down. Okay. Final destination for this has to be 42.5 to 42 3/4. I have a 1/4 inch wiggle room. Okay. And so I start at the top. The top of the table top is 7/8. I'm just going to call it an inch because math. And I know that the pedestal at the bottom there's going to be a 1 inch gap between it and the floor. So I subtract 2 inches off of that. I'm going to go 40 3/4. Okay. Should put me exactly where I'm supposed to be. When you're ready to start cutting your length, just take a quick look. If there's anything ugly that you want to get rid of, now's the time to do it. So I'm going to start by squaring these up like I did before. Square them up, measure them, cut the other side. That's all you got to do, and then you're done. Might be time to wax this too. So that may or may not be a problem. I got a lot of junk I got to move now because wall. Sure, it's just all in the way. Okay, well, I am back from the event. Every Wednesday night, the church has a dinner, and I'm not going to miss that. I'm there in support. I'm the pastor. I'm supporting the dinner. I'm eating. So anyway, good tonight. Man, really good tonight. I'm going to shout out Charlie and Stephanie made some lasagna tonight. Golly Moses. Anyway, here's where I'm at. When I got back, I went ahead and cut these all to length, and they're pretty close. I went ahead and laid them out end to end, put some blue tape on the back side, like 6 strips of blue tape. I have some various straps and things of that nature that hopefully I'm going to use to pull this all tight. I'm going to be honest with you here. I have my doubts. Okay. Even as I was cutting the 22.5 or 67.5, whichever way you want to look at it, I was watching these boards bow as I was cutting them. But I'm going to try and put it together and just squeeze it until it pops. And if I can get it to stay together, well, I'll just fill the rest of it. That's why they make filler, right? People use filler every day. So I'm going to go ahead and this is going to be one big giant mess. I already know that, but there ain't no way to do it where it ain't going to be a mess. So there's a gap right there. I think I'm going to start here and see what happens. And I'm just, like I said, I'm just going to goop this on because I don't know any other way to do it. I should have read what the setup time on this glue is. I guess I'll find out, huh? Woo. Come on now. And I ain't going to run the fingers through it and all that. I'm just going to let gravity do its thing and it'll run its way down to where I need it to go. I hope. Now for the fun part. Guess what I didn't do again? Oh, wow, this stuff is setting up like now. All right, I gotta throw some on here. You guys are supposed to remind me of this stuff. All right, a little bit. I can't see nothing. We're just going with it. Sure, looks good that way. Let's roll this one from this direction. Oh, she's close. I'm gonna tell you what, so far I'm gonna call that a success. This is where it all falls apart. Probably should have planned this out differently, but you know, I don't do that. Come on now. I know you guys are screaming at me that I need to hurry up. And I know I do. Oh my word, it's got a knot in it. Well, this strap's garbage. It doesn't even hold. All right. Well, that's why we have ratchet straps, because they always work. Okay. I feel a little bit better about that. Should have got the ones that were already put together. I did this backwards. I wonder if I can make it work anyway. Maybe. Don't put this one together the same way you did the other one, dummy. That's better. Maybe we had a little bit too much whale on it. I'm going to call that glued together. I've got squeeze out. You ought to see the inside of this thing. It looks like an ocean. But that's okay because it's the inside. I don't care about that. But I think it's close enough that it's going to be okay. I've never used ratchet straps to do this, and I don't really like the idea of it because they're not conducive to this, is what I'm trying to say here. But in this instance, they're working. If you do this, there's the possibility that you'll over clamp it, as you saw over here. You didn't see it, but I can tell you that I had an 1/8 inch overhang, and the problem was I had it squeezed so tight that the turnbuckle was pushing that piece in. I just loosened it up a little bit, and she went right in. I think that's going to do it for tonight because I ain't touching this thing until this bad boy is completely set up and dry. Here's the thing. There's going to be mistakes in this, but the average person that comes up and looks at it, they're going to see an octagon. I can sand and fill and do the things I need to do to make it look better. But the fact that it all went together using bowed boards, I'm going to count that as a win. So tomorrow's Thursday. I'm not going to be able to work on this tomorrow. I have a meeting in the morning and I have Kairos in the evening, so I'm not going to be around. But Friday, I think I can move on with this and get it out of the clamps and see what it looks like. So, hey, have a great couple days or a couple seconds, and I'll see you whenever I can get back out here. Okay, new day. This thing sat for an entire day like this. So now it's like Christmas morning, and the temperature outside feels like Christmas morning. Man, last week I was in shorts running around. I said, I'm never wearing jeans again. I got jeans on now. But anyway, so now we got to unstrap this thing, see how bad it really is. So, I mean, it's set up. I'm pretty sure it's set up. It ain't going to fall apart. We're just going to have at it. While I was in the middle of clamping this up, I was thinking to myself, first off, you don't know how to unhook things. It had seemed to me that these clamps, if I could get rid of the hooks and just have them so it's a strap instead of the hooks. There might be if there's something on the market like that for woodworking, let me know, because the hooks they get, cockeyed, and I don't mind the ratchet part of it so much, but if I can get, if I can eliminate the hook, basically, that's what I'm saying. I think it would make stuff like this a whole lot less stressful. So I'm not going to bother wrapping these up, and then I'll yell about it later, because that's what I do. I don't even know where to put these because normally they're in my pickup. Sure. Slam dunk. All right. So I'll get this out of straps or clamps, and I'll check back in. Okay, so the clamps are off. Straps are off, sorry. I mean, it looks like an octagon. There are some things that I need to address. For instance, I don't know if that's going to show up on the camera,
But where the turnbuckle sat, there's definitely some marks from the turnbuckles I'll need to get out. There are a couple of gaps, but I can deal with that. I can take care of that. I know how to take care of that. That's not a problem. Lots and lots of glue. And I need to show you the inside of this thing because it's hilarious. So I was pretty happy with very little squeeze out on the outside, but man, look at the inside of this thing. That's where all my squeeze out came. And that's okay. I can clean it up or not. One thing, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get my big Sasquatch arm in there to clean it all the way up there. But the only points I'm really worried about are where the legs are going to bolt on, because they have to bolt on flat. But I wanted to give you a view of that. That's hilarious and kind of sad all at the same time. So, okay, got the old random orbit sander out because that's what's next. Got to get coffee everywhere. Got to get this sanded. Just a piece of tape. I don't know how y'all do it, but here's how I'm going to do it. Let me look here. For instance, I can feel a little bit of a high spot there where when they went together, it's like tectonic plate. Is that a thing? Tectonic, the thing that makes, never mind. Anyway, you get this high groove, this high spot here. I'm just sand that bad boy down. See ya, no more of a problem. I am going to start this with an 80 grit because I know I have some things that I have to hit and get taken down. And this didn't come out near as nice as the tabletop where I could get away with just running a 200. By the way, still haven't picked up any 120 sandpaper. I'll get it. Don't worry. It just hasn't happened yet. I did kind of hook this up to dust collection, even though it makes it so clunky and uncomfortable. And just, you know, I guess my cross to bear, it is what it is, but there's going to be a lot of sanding on this, and I don't want it just blown all over the shop. When I did the tabletop and I was done and I was walking out, it looked like Los Angeles in here. I mean, haze everywhere. So, all right, I guess I just got to get started on this, and that's really bad there. I'm going to start, oh, there's glue. This is going to be a blast. Okay, so I'm not sure if it's actually going to show up on camera or not, but through here, maybe you can see there's a little bit of a separation there. It comes all the way up to the end. It's glued, it's solid, it just didn't draw together. There's another one up here. I know you guys have seen this trick before, but I'm going to tell you anyway in case you haven't. Just take a little bit of glue, run it in there, and then hit it with some sandpaper. A lot of people will use a random orbit sander. I've not necessarily had good luck with that, actually, just because mine's horrible. But what I'll do is I'll put glue in there and then I'll hand sand it. And that seems to work pretty well for me. So that's what I'm up against now. I got to get some of these cracks filled in. But after an 80 grit, it is looking pretty good. I'm excited about it. Okay, so it's really came out a lot nicer than I was expecting it to. She done. This is done. Off camera, last I spoke with you, I went ahead and filled everything with glue and dust. And one little tidbit on that, because I didn't really explain it that well. When I do that, what I'll do is I'll put the glue in. I hit it with an 80 grit by hand, and it does two things. One, it gets the smear off of everything around it, because if you got smear, you're not getting sawdust. Then I took the random orbit sander that did have an 80 on it, flew over it with that. Then I went back over it by hand with a 220. And that's really where you're going to get your best dust at, is with the 220. But did that, went back over the entire thing with the random orbit sander with the 220. And then by hand, just kind of hit every one of these joints so they weren't, like spikes. And then did every flat surface by hand with a 220 as well. I'm not kidding, folks. I'm excited about this because this is something I've never done before. And isn't that what it's about? Is hopefully you build something, you learn something. So I learned quite a few things. One, don't rush the project. If your wood bows, fix it. I probably could have saved myself a lot of heartache had I done that. But she's done. She's sanded again. I'm not going to finish it until everything is done. So tune in next week when I'm going to build legs for the bottom. If it's legs at the bottom and you have the same thing at the top, does that make them arms? Let's do that. I'm going to make legs and arms, attach them, final assembly, staining, all of that. We're going to put a bow on the whole thing next week. So make sure you come back and see if I can mess this up at some point. Hopefully not, because I've already showed it to the wife and she's excited about it too. So in the meantime, thanks for watching, folks. I'm glad that you're sticking with me through this project. One more to go and we're done. So thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed, if you like what you're seeing, go ahead and hit the button, hit the ding dong, I don't know, all that stuff, whatever you want to do. And if you don't, just stop back next week and see how it looks when it's all said and done. So thanks for watching. God bless. I'll see you next week.